All right, well, welcome everyone. If you're here, that means you're here for the session on design practices for building trustworthy products. Really excited to dive in with you all today. Just a quick logistical note, would love for everyone to give this a try with us. This is an experiment we're running here at Plaid in terms of virtual workshops. So we're going to post a link in the chat. Maybe we have already. Yeah, we have. Would love everyone few minutes to access this link, get their windows situated, and so you can contribute, sign up for a Figma account. This is a great tool when it comes to working with designers. It's an awesome tool to use. And so we hope that you'll feel welcomed trying this tool with us today. But if not, you're always welcome to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. But it will be a lot more fun, a lot more informative, a lot more productive if you do sign up for this tool. So we'll give us a few more minutes. I'm going to shut my door in case we'll just give us a little more privacy. Anyone having trouble getting access to the tool? Jump in the chat if you do. Otherwise, logistical reminders, if you do have questions, please use the Q&A feature under session. We'll address those at the end of the session. And also consider using the chat to share thoughts, comments, concerns, whatever it may be throughout the conversation. But without further ado, I think we'll dive in. Does that sound good, Sneha? Is there anything else we need to touch on?
No, let's get started.
Okay, cool. All right, great. So we'd love to start with a little bit about everyone we're chatting with today. So if you wouldn't mind, let's drop in the chat who you are, your role, your company, and to help us help you, a little bit about what you're expecting to get out of today's session. That could be as simple as just, I'm curious and I want to learn more about what's going on here, to I have very specific questions about what it means to build trustworthy products and I want to get them answered. So feel free to use the chat. Would love to see what's on everyone's mind and what everyone's working up to. Welcome, Michael. And while you all are doing that, and I will join you in the chat as well. We'll share a little bit about us. So my name is Al Hertz. I'm on the design team. I'm hoping to share some very practical tips on how to build trustworthy products. What about you, Sneha?
Yeah, I'm a designer. I'm also dialing in from Seattle. So woohoo, Seattle, Tacoma, Puget Sound. I lead the design of credit products here, and a little plug for if you have any questions for us during the chat, please feel free to throw in here.
Great. Welcome, Sean. Thanks for joining in the conversation. Michael as well. And Sneha, I saw you mention that some folks that with FigJam. That's great. Thank you all for diving in with us like that. I know that this is an atypical request, so we really appreciate you giving that a shot. Yard and welcome. Excellent. As you all do join in, share more, we hope that folks can create connections with others in the community as well. And this helps us think about the kind of guidelines we can help create for the broader fintech and financial services community who we're working with. So thank you everyone. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so while we all get comfortable sharing a bit about ourselves, let's talk about what we're here to talk about today. I'm going to pass it off to Sneha.
Thank you, Al. So at Plaid, we build experiences for financial products. And we have learned that one of the most important factors for user adoptions of our products is building trust. It underpins all the consumer-facing experience we built here, for example, link, Plaid portal, verification of income. We spend a lot of time thinking about what makes an experience feel trustworthy. Today, we're excited to share some of the things what we have learned. So, as I told you, like we are all building a digital financial services. So, what do you think is so unique about them? Why should we think about them differently? Financial applications have access to users' highly personal and at times confidential data. This makes the relationship of the user and the financial application a lot more nuanced and complex. To an extent, we have heard users being reluctant to share anything about themselves at all. We don't have the same connections like once we did when we knew everyone at a neighborhood bank branch. What was so special about those bank branches? We trusted them with our money, with our data, with our decisions. And this trust is what we want to establish with our users. We want them to confide in us. Now, Al, my friend, will unpack what we really do at Plaid to build trustworthy products.
Great. Thanks, Neha. So yeah, it's a bit of background on what's inspired us and some things we like to think about when it comes to building that kind of experience is three pillars. Now, we're not saying these are the end all be all solutions, but there are three aspects or facets of creating an experience that inspire us. So they're secure, private, and convenient. First, talking about what makes something feel secure, it's important to note that today we're not talking so much about the functional benefits of, say, secure, like making sure the way you store data is secure or monitoring and so forth is, those practices are there. We're more so talking about the less tangible aspects of making an experience feel secure. So here's a quote from a user. We're constantly spending time with everyday people who use different financial services and trying to learn more about the attitudes and behaviors that go into them. And it's something that's inspired us where there's something about, a financial service that does implore us to be more considerate of the emotions when we're designing for our users. And so it's a less rational need space. And so we need to be mindful of there being more guidance when we are actually designing for the users we serve. And thanks everybody for posting notes in the chat. Welcome everyone that's joined in. So what's a practical set of examples for, responding to this? Again, these aren't end all be all solutions, but they're really like practical first steps you can take if you're looking for a way to either work with your team to provide feedback or designing for your app itself. They're really straightforward, and they hopefully can just be a starting point to get you going when you think like, how might we make this experience feel more secure? So one, this is a bar none requirement. It's just a consistent look and feel with learnable patterns is going to make a really big deal for building credibility. Two, sometimes intentional friction can actually help users avoid mistakes and make better informed choices about their security. And last but not least, it's always good to follow up with some educational content that's at least easily discovered by a search engine, or maybe directly in the critical path of your app or service to help folks get the information they need if they do have more questions. I'm going to pass it off to Sneha, who's going to talk about the second need, private.
Thank you, Al. Like Al mentioned, security comes from how financial data is transferred and where it's stored. On the other hand, privacy is something we see coming from what providing more clarity on what data is being accessed and by whom. And in this section, I'll provide a few guidelines to ensure when users are using your service, they walk away feeling assured that you are considering their needs. Firstly, clearly informing the user when the data is being used by third parties. And you see in this example, we have illustrated how Plaid shares its role in establishing connection between Wonder Wallet and financial accounts. Secondly, it is important to give control to the users where they can stop sharing their data anytime easily. Here you see an example of Plaid Portal where we show all the data connections to the users and they can disconnect anytime. And thirdly, for users who are more concerned about privacy, giving them an ability to view detailed information easily is also very important. With this, I'll hand it over to Al, who will share tips for creating convenient feeling experiences.
Thanks. So those two elements are very important for experience. go to people when their financial loss. These tasks tend to be the most joyful, or not often the most. So how might we make them super easy forward so they're not cumbersome and frustrating? It's important that we respect our users' time, make sure they're easy, fast, and dare I say delightful to use, like any other app or service in any other space. So what are some ways you can do that? One, it's always important to bring forward succinct call to actions that are action oriented, and using human friendly language. I love to describe this as, and I've heard it described as, the speakeasy effect. You want to generally write for a lower reading level just to make things really approachable from a language perspective. Secondly, anytime you have the opportunity to help users avoid or not have to do repetitive actions, like in this instance, we have an example of how we sort institutions closer to the top of the institution select, and we know what institution the user might select. You just want to save time in small ways you can. They have a really lasting effect. And then last but not least, it's always important to consider how graphical elements might be able to help users feel a little more confident when proceeding through your flow. Ultimately, confidence is a really critical thing that people when they're using your app or service. And so, in summary, these are just 9 quick tips that if you're already doing, you should just go ahead and walk away from this session saying, awesome. But if you haven't implemented some of these, we'd recommend considering them and maybe even give feedback to your team. Or if you're actually, on the ground making the changes themselves, consider making them this week or next week. There's small things that we just think, are important to consider when designing great apps and services that are worthy of trust. Again, not end all be all, but something that can provide a starting point if you're feeling stuck or just curious about how you might be able to make a better product or service for your customers. And so now is the main event. We're gonna use these tips, and so I'm gonna hand it over to Sneha, who's gonna walk you through a bit about how we're gonna get started. Oops. Oh, yes.
For some reason, Al, I cannot see your slides.
Oh, can you not? What do you see?
It's a gray screen. Are folks able to see it? Anybody in the chat? Yes, no? Oh, perfect. It's perfect now.
A little bit of a technical difficulty, but we're back. Thanks, everybody.
Yes. Okay, so welcome everyone to the hands-on workshop. There is a link in the chat. I'm going to share it again so everybody has access to Figma. You will need to sign up, but please feel free to join us if you would want to participate and engage in this workshop. And we would love for you to come and brainstorm with us together. Also, another request from us, if you would like to come in and join us for a deeper conversation, you can actually do that by joining us through joining your video and audio. Al, if you share a screen, there is a screenshot on slide 26, which just shows where you can click on your hop-in tool to join in with your video and audio. So we have room for 20 folks to join us more, in an engaged way to help us. There you go. It's on FigJam now. So
yeah, I was having a little bit of window stuff there.
Yes, that's okay. Please feel free to click on share audio and video and join us. We'll love to see you and talk to you in a more intimate setting. So while you're all getting set up, I see a few folks in FigJam right now adding stickers. So exactly this is what we're going to be doing. At the bottom of FigJam, you see a couple of tools. So if you can click on the 4 squares, you will see lots of stickers. Feel free to pick the one you like and stick it in the circle. It's just getting a little warm up using this tool, and then we can dive into more helping improve the app, which we see down below in the artboard. So I see a jam, walking, yo, magic, nice. Please keep them coming. This big jam is fun with so many stickers, and we can keep using these stickers during our conversation. Also, I'm loving the sock stickers.
Yeah, those are good. So random.
And yeah, yeah. If folks are having difficulty using this tool, please shout out to.
Yeah, I'll be standing by everyone to help anyone. If you want to post a question in chat, I can answer those. We'll also use Q&A for the future, but if you have questions about FigJam, feel free and I can help you resolve them in chat.
Okay, so there's a burger in there, a few other things showing up. Okay, so let's get started. So I'd like you to meet Jimmy. Jimmy's our friend, and he knows that you're all now experts at designing trustworthy solutions, and he would really love your help in improving First Platypus Bank app, which you see right here. So let's zoom into the first section of our guidelines, which is security. And Al talked about, the three things we can do to have a more secure feeling experience in our app. So we will go through these, and I would love for you all to pick up these stickers at the bottom, the thumbs up or thumbs down stickers, and add it to the guideline you feel, eh, assess the app and see which guidelines are being met and which are not. I see, a few folks putting thumbs down on the first guideline. Keep going. How, what others feel about this. Looks like there are some issues with the inconsistent look and feel of the app. It's like the second one. The intentional friction also is getting a few thumbs down. The educational content on your security, a few thumbs down there too. Would anybody want to share what they think is not great about uh, the app regarding consistent look and feel? Feel free to drop it in the chat, or you can join us by clicking on share audio and video and share it with us right here.
Nice, Yarden. That's exactly right for that first one. Sneha, a quick logistical thing. Are you able to open the moderation panel? We'll see if we have anyone requesting to join us in the video here.
Yes, and I do not see anybody in the moderation panel yet.
Okay, no problem. Folks, you're welcome to join the discussion. You're also welcome to chat wherever you're most comfortable.
Yeah, and the fonts don't match. What about intentional friction? What do people feel about that? We have 4 down, words for it. What do people think is the reason of voting down not having intentional friction? Drop it in the chat. Oh yeah, you got that right. Yeah, the number format. Yeah, keep them coming. Yes. And some downwards on educational content, on your security practices is easy to discover and understand. Any ideas of what folks think?
Looks like Crystal here shared some notes about it would be important to ask for education on why we're asking for something like social security number. That's great.
Yeah. So, Al, do you want to do the big reveal of, how could a Jimmy design a better app, which would feel more secure?
Absolutely. And Michael, you caught something we missed not intentionally, or we did not intentionally. But yeah, so you all grabbed some great examples of how this could be improved. And here's just a quick take. So, one example, I think we mentioned like asking for SSN up front is a big no-no. It's like, how might we actually break apart this long form into a pathway that can go build confidence over time using, so that relates to really the second step. It helps people not only build confidence, but make sure they're not making mistakes. Consistent look and feel. I think we saw some folks shout out the multiple use of fonts. That's actually fine, right? But it's important to make sure that they're cohesive together. And so, sometimes, oftentimes, it's important to use one, maximum two. Now, that's an end-all be-all solution, but always a good start. And then three, you can see here we tried to, like, instead of in the example where we maybe have seen teams want to make a particular field feel more secure, instead of making it feel very different in the social security context, we introduce this notion of like a security seal on the input. These are ways you can start to incorporate a little bit of that. And if folks do have questions, they can wayfind themselves towards an area where they could learn more about security practices if they're still not over the hump yet in terms of trusting your brand. So again, these are not all, these aren't the end-all be-all solutions, but just examples to get you started.
We have a question in the chat. It talks, would SSN be a manual field or pulled securely encrypted via a secure source?
If you can find a way to make it so that the user doesn't have to manually supply that data, I think it's just important that they understand how that is happening. But of course, if there's, if people feel like they have to give up less to get your service in exchange, that's going to feel better. But that's really, I think, a matter of then being clear as to how you're doing that, what might be behind the scenes there that is happening. And that actually is a good segue to the next facet of private. So I'll let Sneha guide us through that next portion.
Yes. Onto the purple screen. So the same drill. Let's look at Jimmy's app here, and let's assess how he's doing around privacy, around clearly telling where third parties can access the data, where giving easy ability to stop that share of data, and giving additional information for people to assess if understand how the data is being used. So feel free to move the thumbs up, thumbs down, and it's fine to use hearts and questions too. I'm sure there'll be something Jimmy would like us to appreciate in the work their team has done. I see a few question marks on the first guideline. Yeah, keep them coming. We have more pictures getting added into the Fig Jam. There's a little platypus on the computer. Interesting. There's a thumbs up saying it's clear where third-party data is being accessed. Would folks want to share some of their thoughts on what's so unclear, or what is clear for the first guideline up here? Feel free to drop it in the chat. There are more likes we see. Al, do you want to talk a little bit more about the first guideline? We see a few question marks there.
Yes, of course. So, this is a really interesting one that's a continuous topic, and something I think we're all working together on as a community to constantly iterate on. But the important thing to note is that in this instance, you do have disclosures noted. But something that we try to encourage, as well as something we try to apply at Plaid, is going beyond that and trying to actually incorporate this information to the experience in a more integrated fashion. And so let's see if we can provide an example there. One of the aspects that we've exemplified here for the first instance is just if Jimmy were to take the experience and break it apart into multiple steps from one long form, where then all the information about when data is being shared with different third parties is displayed at one time, that Jimmy, if he broke it apart into multiple steps, could provide context alongside each particular piece of information that may be shared and say, this is how this might be used. And so in this instance, maybe the app that Jimmy is creating is using a social security number verification service, that he could talk about that to his users explicitly about that particular instance. And so, this isn't saying that this is the only way to do this, but what's important is that progressive disclosure that occurs, because it can make the information a lot more approachable and less overwhelming, because it's broken apart into small bite-sized chunks to help Jimmy's user learn and understand how their data may be used at different points throughout their experience onboarding. And secondly, I see everyone did give it bad marks, which is great. Good on us. Is that right now at this point, it's not necessarily the critical path that the user is on to access, or rather manage, the data that they're sharing. But it's important that they're made aware of the fact that they can and where they could do that. So that's the second thing you can see here. We're showing that mostly in this instance. Again, there's a lot of other ways to do this. And frankly, we could probably do more to go beyond just writing text. People tend not to read when we're on the go, and that goes, we'll talk about convenience here in a bit. But this is a start, and this is a bit of a framework that you could think about. And then last, detailed content. So it's kind of building on that same element, but also, one of the things we generally recommend, and I think we cited, is that these elements, especially number 3, like I have more questions, let's just keep it a quick Google search away, or search engine search away. But if you do have a moment like we have here, but this kind of builds on the security element, to create more of a story, hey, if you do have questions, this is where you can go. Create an entry point to that content. That's always good. But so these are just really small examples. We're all iterating on how we can best do this as a community building products and financial services. But the important note here is that it can be delivered in bite-sized chunks, so that if my information is if my social security number is being asked for, that I know and with whom, right in that moment that it's being asked for. And it's not so overwhelming where, maybe I have to review a certain document, which is always important. But we also want to find ways as designers to really make it like that content, that answer, as accessible as possible. Okay.
I see a few stickers showing up on the board. Thank you for liking this. One thing I've been trying to observe is that if folks are having difficulty copying and dragging these stickers up to the colorful boards, you might be on the pan, your cursor might be a hand instead of an arrow. So if you go at the bottom of your toolbar and click on move tool versus the hand tool, that will be your key to moving these stickers up on the board. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
Okay, so over to the last category, convenience. So let's grade Jimmy's product on the three criterias: how succinct are the call to actions, if they have the recognized any opportunities of removing redundancies for users, and using graphical elements to increase comprehension. You all know these are not trick questions.
Maybe we should have put some tricks in there.
Yeah.
Everyone's very good at this. This is great.
Yeah.
It's great to see everyone experimenting with FigJam too. We are not affiliated with Figma, of course, but we use it at Plaid. We love it. And FigJam in particular is a great collaboration tool for designers, PMs, engineers, marketers, whatever your role is, just working together. Really, really great.
As we're giving more thumbs down to succinct call to actions, do people want to share with us what do they really think is not so clear about the first guideline? Maybe folks are pointing out to the green button. Is that the case for succinct call to actions? Got it. Yes, it's too much, too long for a CTA.
And you could, it's reasonable intention here. It's because that's what's happening. A profile is being created, and this application is being submitted in this very discrete and important aspects. But CTA is call to action. Yes, that's a good question. Yep. But so in this case, it's a little long. And again, it's thinking about confidence, making someone feel like they can trust what's about to happen here. It's going to happen as they expect it to. Even these little micro details, that can be enough to trigger our spidey sense, so to speak. And we want to navigate those as well as we can.
There are a few question marks on the second tip. It's good, yeah. Do we want to give a few more minutes before we reveal the better design?
That or oh yeah, great call out, Crystal. Interesting question, Joe. That's a good one.
We did get a few thumbs down on the recognized returning users and creating some patterns. Do folks want to share why they think this app doesn't address that? Yeah, submit button has a lot of text. Not something we want always. Okay, over to you, Al, to share with us what could be better.
Awesome. So again, we have an answer here. It's not the end all be all, but it's a little inspiration in case these are some issues you maybe observe in your data or ideas. Maybe it sparked ideas. And again, if you feel like you're doing all these things, then great. This is very much like a 101 level sort of conversation we're having here, and we wanted it to be enough of a teaser because we do work internally with teams on this as well. We wanted to give you a sense of what that's like. But in here, one, because we did break apart that flow into a multi-step process, we were able to shorten things to be relevant to whatever step is happening. And so I see, there's a good question here around like, what's the most trustworthy call to action? Submit, create account, anything else? The principle I would recommend is whatever feels most relatable to the content being shared at that time. Final, so that's probably useful for the last step of this process, where the others like a next or continue, to clarify that there's no finality yet. You can make changes, you could go back, would be probably the way I would recommend approaching things. And same goes for create an account. That probably is more in the final versus ephemeral dimension of things. And then secondly, around repetitive actions, one good example of things here is we can take advantage of is like trying to figure out when we might know the information about a person because it's stored on their device and you have access to that. So in a simple case here, we just have like a password manager being available and trying to make that quick. You might recall in the instances we shared earlier where we had the returning user experience and link, we tried to improve the search ranking if we knew information about the user. That's a more practical example too. And then last but not least, you might have noted, I think we had someone say the view just feels a bit plain. I think that, it's a subjective thing, but it's important to invest in the details. So graphic elements like the progress indicator at the top, where it gives me a sense of completion and progress. Similarly, elements of like building some notion or concept of like this security seal can be an interesting way to play and help people feel a little bit more confident. And then last but not least, then we do have some iconography here for like functional things like being able to show or hide the actual password field. So it's important to incorporate those things. I think what, calling out most importantly, if you can just pick one and like use it as a way to help guide folks through a flow in this particular case, that can be really useful. So those are the three there. Again, very much an intro to all this. If you ever do have interest in spending more time with the team, I'm going to bring it back to our Google Slides, and we're going to take questions. But we do have our Twitter handles here. You're welcome to reach out to us. So let me stop sharing. And Sneha, is there anything to what I just mentioned?
No, I think we covered it all. And again, if you have any questions for us, please, share with us right now, or you can always reach out to us on Twitter.
That's great. And I'm just going to get my window up. And we can close things out. Q&A. And here are our Twitter handles. Feel free to add us anytime. We'll do our best to respond. I'm going to take a look at the Q&A. No questions right now. We'll give folks a little time, but otherwise we will be wrapping up in 5 minutes here. And you did it. You can now officially, if you didn't already see yourself as one, consider, a designer of some stripe. So thanks for joining us. And we'll take questions for the last 5 minutes if folks have. That's a great one. So if you're ever looking for examples, Crystal asked, where do you suggest to look for inspiration for UX design for fintech apps? My personal recommendation, I think, Sneha, I would be curious to know yours too. Great place to maybe start. There's a tool called Mobbin. And if you go to mobbin.design, they just have examples of many, many different apps. It's not particularly fintech, but you should be able to filter on perhaps the dimension of financial services. I'm not quite sure. That's a great start. And that's one tool I would recommend trying out this week or next week to get some inspiration. I don't know what you recommend, Sneha.
I'm a big Medium follower, so Medium is a place where I look at some design trends, and there are great authors talking about fintech design trends. So that could be another resource for you to follow. Sometimes it can get a bit spammy with weekly newsletters, but you can control the information you want to consume also.
Coming right up. Sometimes we'll take a look at this internally for inspiration. It's a great site just to see what other folks are doing. Really interesting stuff on there. I do also want to say that none of these here are a replacement for doing your own user research and observing users use your own app. This is a starting point, but you always check our statistics too. This is what we've seen working, but we're always in learning too. So you can test these assumptions and make sure we're putting our best foot forward with the recommendations.
We have another question here. What are your thoughts on designing for light or dark mode?
Great. I don't happen to see that. Do you want to take that one, or would you like me to take it, Sneha?
You can go first, and then I can add.
Okay. So I think first and foremost, like preferences is key to think about when designing for folks. And dark mode, it can have a lot of benefits when it comes to maybe being easier on folks' eyes, can be generally maybe more pleasant for people, subjectively speaking. Maybe they just like the way it looks better, for example. Those sorts of things are going to be really helpful. I think from mostly like a purely like the most pragmatic standpoint, dark mode is very useful when thinking about eye strain. And so, how important that is to you is worth considering. But those generally, I think, are the aspects of like just subjective. I like the way it looks. And two, like my body, protecting my eyes is important.
Yeah, and our chat has been disabled for some reason. But another thought I had on light and dark mode is that a plug for system design. So there is a thing we have in design where we design systems of how the visual language is. So if you are thinking about moving from a light to a dark mode, it is really about thinking how you convert your existing system to match and work on the dark mode and also with darker background. So thinking about it from a systems perspective, thinking about it from how do the buttons overall feel like, how do the text overall feels like, is something I would invest in as you're thinking about going from light to dark mode. And another plug for dark mode is that a lot of applications now provide like low battery modes. So even adding to the eye strain functionality wise, dark modes are getting more usage. So just another thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's great. It looks like we have a few more questions. I know that this session technically ended on the 15th, but we'll stay until the 20 so we can answer these last few. Sneha, someone asks, what are our learnings on balancing how Plaid is developed as a developer platform versus an end user experience?
Yeah, I can take that one. So one of the biggest learning for us is that the products which we build, do end up saying are in the end for the end user, even though we are, the people who are buying these from us are developers, the people who are using them are end consumers. So one of the biggest learnings from us as a design team has been that we need to do a little bit more understanding and research and really invest in understanding our end user behaviors, how they think about fintech products, how do they think about finances, what are the different mental models they have around using financial applications. And this is because we serve, you know, as a platform for developers to connect their, you know, connect bank accounts with their financial institutions. So this has been our learning. And how do we balance both of these things? I think the best thing is where we find needs of the developers coinciding with the needs of the consumers, and that is the best place you want to start investing in, versus, you know, having a trade-off between the developer and the end consumer. And you know, and using our research, we actually many times, and this might sound surprising, but we many times do find the interests and the needs of developers coinciding with end users, of course, because developers want their platform to be you know, more adopted and trusted by the end consumers. So finding needs on both ends, seeing if you can overlap them, and starting with the ones which are overlapping is in summary. Do you want to add anything, Al?
Yeah, no, I think I would just say we have a principle at the company. We call it, or it's described as consumer outcomes by customer love. And so, or the overlap between those two things, they have to go hand in hand. And it's a hard one to navigate sometimes, but we try to always find the middle of the Venn diagram. So yeah, and we're always pleasantly surprised with how much overlap there is. Next question was that, do you find it's better to have one action per screen in an onboarding flow, which can elongate the flow, or opt for a shorter flow? What's the sweet spot? That's a good question. So just quick notional response. I think there is, you know, a threshold you have to be mindful of, and that's dependent on, I think, on what you're asking the user to do. Let's take, for instance, a case where the user is signing up for a new bank account, or, you know, applying for a new bank account. I think there's you know, some degree of understanding that that's a complex process, so you can probably make it a few steps. But that's something that you should probably do your own testing around. I wouldn't say that there's a particular sweet spot, though I wouldn't recommend like going beyond probably 5. 3 would probably be the sweet spot if I had one, but I'm just pulling a number out of my hat. Secondly, like the dividing into multiple steps, there is this notion in UX design that more steps equals less conversion, you know, and less ease of use. And that's, I think, a very important aspiration to have. Like, if you can minimize something to one tap or one click, that is always the holy grail. But it shouldn't be a constraint that you dogmatically constrain to in that. Like, sometimes more steps can actually be a helpful experience. We did notice this when we introduced more steps to the link flow, when we were testing consent view. And so sometimes, you know, can encourage your own testing, but sometimes it can actually be helpful. And it goes back to that notion of making someone feel like they know what they're getting themselves into every step of the way. Sometimes that progressive disclosure of the steps can help folks build confidence and understanding of what they're going through. I don't know if you would add anything to that, Sneha.
Yeah, and I would also add that it depends if the onboarding is happening on a larger screen versus if it is happening on a mobile experience. So some of our dashboard experiences of onboarding developers are a lot more, you know, like lots more steps in just one screen versus dividing them over. So just understanding the usage and the use case around the onboarding is also really important. We have one last more.
Okay, last question. Some apps like Duolingo make apps accessible even before creating anything like that applicable in fintech, so that it reduced barriers to sign up. Have that we've encountered. I think we've seen some interesting instances where apps have done that, and we're always interested in seeing folks do that more. I think it's just a matter of the heightened level of risk that we have to navigate when we're building financial services that require us to take less of those bets on our users, but continuously, even like with fraud tools that are emerging, and maybe you all heard about Signal, like we are trying to find ways to make that more possible, and that like these can be one-tap financial services, and Plaid's just the front door to that. It's something that I think is emerging, but it's not as commonplace as you might see in service like Duolingo or maybe social media or productivity tools and so forth. Would you, Sneha?
Yeah, so like I think Ali covered it all, and it is really really important for us to think about security and preventing risk, and I am of the thought also that now users understand that, and sometimes committing to signing up and creating an account is what is needed from a user perspective also. So like not being able to sign up and having the ability to use the app before that might not give you committed users as you would need or want in your product. So it is really about that security trade-off.
Yeah. Great. Well, that's all we have time for, folks. We really appreciate you participating. I had a ton of fun. I don't know about you, Sneha. Did you have fun?
Yes, I enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved the grading section. We were brilliant.
Yes, that was brilliant. Thank you all so much for your time. We hope you enjoy the next sessions. We'll let you go. We appreciate you going a little over time so we could ask and answer questions. And if you do have any more questions, do feel free to give us a shout on Twitter. Our handles are right there. There should also be a recording available of this. In case you do want to deploy these heuristics in your own work, you're welcome to use them and reach out if you have questions. So thank you all so much.
Bye. Thank you.